Arsenal come streaming forward now in surely what will be their last attack. A good ball by Dixon, finding Smith. But Thomas charging through the midfield. Thomas, it's up for grabs now. Thomas, right at the
end. Hello and welcome to a Gooners in USA podcast, where today I'm joined by my life partner, Mike. How are you, bud?
I'm doing well. I love the moment when you got down on your knees and asked me to do a podcast for the rest of our lives together. But, I thought we were keeping that quiet. But, now that you've gone and spoiled it. Do you know it's been over 372 minutes of game time since Arsenal have given up a goal from less than 45 yards away from the goal?
Really?
We're on a hot streak. I had that at 20-1 odds, so I'm rich now.
Ballin'.
But yeah, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was okay.
It was all right.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. We had I've been talking about this a little bit. We had our annual fundraiser yesterday, raising money to fight leukemia and lymphoma. Yeah. Which I fucking hate those diseases. Those guys are dicks.
Yep.
And we're getting close to our goal of raising $50,000. So I'm going to send out a thank you to those that donated on goonersvscancer.com, goonersvscancer.com, and we're still accepting donations. So just a quick plug, if anybody has some extra money that they would like to bring to a very good cause, we would love to have your support. So speaking of this week's show, we have, for our second week in a row, a new guest to the show. So we're excited about that. We got some really good feedback from about Harry Pratt last week. See what he's up to at G Harry Pratt, and we'll have him back on definitely again later this season. But as for this week, we're branching out, widening our empire, closing in on total world domination. So today we have blogger, entrepreneur, and most of all, a fifth-generation Arsenal supporter. His name is Gav, but you may know him by his Twitter handle at SheWore. Welcome to the pod, Gav.
Welcome.
How you doing, lads?
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Good.
So fifth generation. Tell me, does that mean your granddad's granddad was like at the games in 1886 or something? I mean, how does that work?
Basically, yeah. My granddad's granddad used to watch Arsenal when they was in Woolwich.
Wow.
And like I say, my granddad remembers going a game with him, only a few games with him. And my granddad used to go with his dad over Highbury. And my granddad used to go with his predominantly brother-in-laws, because my grandma was from a big family. So they all used to go and stand in the corner of the clock end over Highbury. And then me mum and dad used to go over there. My granddad used to take me mum when she was a little girl. And then I started going around 1985, really.
Now, did anybody in the family go off in a different direction? I mean, any nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles?
There's a couple. I've got a cousin who, well, here's one for you. One of my aunts married a Tottenham supporter, and they used to run a pub, the Bank of Friendship, on Blackstock Road. Oh yeah, we know it. And he used to love it because every other Saturday the pub was half empty and he could go and watch Tottenham. But so I've got there's a couple of cousins down that side. There's three of them, two boys. And Tottenham, but it's apart from family. One Boxing Day, we was away to Palace down at Selhurst Park.
Just like this season, we will be.
Yeah, and we played them on Boxing Day. And if anyone's, it's getting to South London by public transport is a right pain in the backside. And coming back, there was also a bomb threat on the train, and it took me about 4 hours to get home. So I've gone back to my grandma's, and I've had 4 generations of family worried about me. And always remember this: the first one that called me over was as I walked in was my great grandma, who must have been sort of 92, 93 at the time. And she called me over. She waving as I walked through. And she sat me down. She went, "So how the boys get on today, Gav?" And do you know what I mean? It was just like that. And like
That's all she cared about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, her flat, which my great aunt still lives in, is, you know, literally it's like a 5-minute walk from the ground still. So, like I say, all the family have pretty much nuts for the Arsenal, really.
Oh, that's fantastic, and obviously you've taken that passion and converted it into a couple of ventures. So you started a blog about 10 years ago, the SheWore.com. Tell us a little bit about how that came into being.
Well, basically, it was I kind of fell into it. Before that, there was a lot of us that used to chat on a football network called Rivals.com.
Okay.
And what it basically was it was like an interactive sort of chat message board and blog. But if you signed in under an Arsenal name, you could go on the Tottenham page and give them a bit of stick, on the Chelsea page or whatever. And it just sort of ended up like, you know, about 15 to 20 of the Arsenal lads sort of were on there all the time whilst we were supposed to be working. And we all become mates, and the majority of us are still mates now. And Sky TV actually bought the network out. And when they did it, they made such a pig's ear of it that everybody left. And when everybody left, there was another sort of group that was set up called Fans Online. And all the Arsenal lads sort of got together and we said, right, we'll go over to that one. And they sort of said, right, Gav, you're handy enough on the computer, you sort it out. So it was kind of just sorting it out. So look, me and my mate said somewhere to chat whilst we was at work, chat about Arsenal while we was at work, really. And
because we weren't going to be doing any work. I mean, that's a given.
No, you don't do work at work, do you? Stupid idea that is. But and like I say, and that's coming up for, I think it's the 11th of December this year is the 10th anniversary of me setting it up.
Wow, and you and at least one other person that I've seen writes brief articles on there. I forget I'm forgetting offhand the name of the other person, but I saw a couple of
keynotes.
Yeah. He seemed to be pretty positive after this weekend.
Yeah, the blog he wrote today was pretty much, he kind of sat on the fence really and gave the argument both ways. The argument for, was it a good result or was it a bad result? And he kind of gave the main points on both sides of things, and which sometimes you have to do. I mean, sometimes writing a blog, it's not just about forcing your opinion on people, it's about getting them to think.
Absolutely, and if anyone hasn't checked that out, go to SheWore.com, and then a few years ago you built, again, you're building your empire into a multimedia stream of revenues. So tell us about the shop, because I was browsing through there today, and there's a ton of really interesting Arsenal related items on there. You got cufflinks, clothing, mugs, clocks, jock straps, condoms. I mean, pretty much anything you could want on there. But so how did that get started?
Well, again, it wasn't planned. It was just kind of a fluke, really. I was kind of, the easiest way I put it, I kind of had a little medical condition, which meant I couldn't go to work. And the company that I was working for, which I'd done a hell of a lot of work for over the decade beforehand, as well as obviously spending their time talking on the internet about Arsenal, they wasn't too sympathetic with regards to my condition, and I just didn't go back. And a friend put me in touch with a gentleman who makes Arsenal badge pins. And he said, look, my mate's got a few of these SheWore yellow ribbon Arsenal badge pins. Do you want some? And like I say, I wasn't working. We was getting to the point where we weren't going to pay the mortgage that month. Yellow. It kind of went from there, really. It kind of went from that to, I started looking at what Arsenal did and what other people do that run merchandise, and I just thought I could do this probably a little bit better with a little bit higher quality and a little bit cheaper. And so that's what I've kind of been trying to do. And like I say, I've got a lot of friends over Arsenal who have been highly supportive over the years, and a lot of people that have been very supportive of my shop. But it's really just trying to get the old school Arsenal logos and designs onto sort of modern stuff.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I describe it, really. And like I say, I mean, with the clock end clock, I've been after a clock end clock for about 30 years. And it took me literally about 18 months before I could actually source somebody to make them for me. And like I say, they've been very popular. There's probably about 20 or 30 of them in America now.
And you call it clock wall clock, right? Which makes
it's the clock wall clock, as in the Arsenal clock end clock.
Well, but that name makes me think of Theo Walcott, which one of those things is shit and the other is not. So I'm gonna give you a compliment because the clock is not shit.
Yeah. I think trying to think. I know there's 3 or 4 of the American supporters clubs who have got them in their pubs. Well, I know there's one in Texas, one in New York, and I do apologise for anybody who's listening if I can't remember your one, but I think there's one. Is it?
Well, yeah. If you're listening to this, let us know if you have one, and we'll make sure Gav knows where those are. But they should be in more. They should be in more than 5 because it's a quality item. So, and check out the shop at SheWoreShop.com. Before we talk about Cologne, I'm in awe of the whole 5 generational thing, and there's really nothing I could do to replicate that in my situation, since I'm kind of the top of the Arsenal pyramid in my family. But I'm trying to make up for it.
Somewhere, mate.
It has to start somewhere. And I'm trying to make up for it by just randomly impregnating as many people as I can and forcing them to be Arsenal fans. So, I can't extend the history, but I'm going to make like 50 new Arsenal fans in the next couple of years and do my part. So we had a couple of games since our last podcast. Andy, you want to start us off with Cologne?
Yeah.
Because you could really use some.
I could. I keep being told the stench. We obviously first game in Europa League, and, it's a great result considering how it started. But, I don't want to spend too much time on the match. But thoughts on the amount of supporters who traveled and from Germany and how many got tickets. And, my question to Gav is, are we as a fan base not that interested in Europa, or were they just paying a shit ton for the ticket? Were you there? Did you kind of see the supporters? What are your thoughts on the whole situation that arose from the beginning of the match?
Yeah, no, it's the first thing is, there wouldn't have been that many Cologne supporters in the ground if more Arsenal supporters actually wanted to go to the game. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of been pretty evident over the last few years that the European games are, unless it's a big club, they haven't particularly been that well supported. And like I say, and that's going back to hybrid days. I remember, I'm not a season ticket holder. I've never been a season ticket holder, but I've always had, I'm a silver member at the moment. I've been for 10 years, and I was on the ticket registration scheme before that. But it's always been easier to get tickets for midweek games because we've got a lot of fans of Arsenal who have, they're second, third generation. Their families have moved out of Islington, and they're scattered all over the country. And it's not, they've got kids, etc. It's not always practical to go and see a midweek game. So, like I say, the crowds have always been a little bit lower on the midweek games, but like I say, I think really with the Cologne game, it was the perfect storm. You've got a club that haven't been in Europe for 25 years. They're playing who the Cologne supporters sort of look up to as one of the bigger clubs in Europe. And they came over in numbers, and everybody knew they was coming over in numbers long before the actual game started. Cologne Banks, 3 or 4 days before the game, were basically saying they'd run out of pound notes. They'd run out of sterling because everybody's coming over here. And the British police and the German police and everybody would have known how many are travelling. They only would have had to, ask the airlines really, but it's pretty evident they were coming over, and they were coming over in numbers. What seems to have happened is twofold with regards to how many actually got in the ground. Firstly, the amount of tickets that they legally and illegally got hold of by regards of what we call touts and what I believe you lot call scalping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Touts.
And secondly, I've got two friends that were sitting in different parts of the ground with Cologne supporters behind them, and they all said that they bought the tickets off the Arsenal ticket exchange. So they signed up to be red members of Arsenal and then bought tickets. Obviously, Arsenal were denying that happened, but when you've got two separate mates that have said the same thing, you know what's gone on. And obviously, the second thing that's happened is obviously clearly that everyone saw the pictures and the film of literally the Cologne supporters all turning up en masse, and I think the police and stewards have just sort of decided, well, just let everybody in. It's easier. They're easier to deal with when they're in the ground. And to be fair, by the looks of it, the vast majority of the Cologne supporters, it's not like going back 10, 15, 20 years where they're turning up for a punch up. They weren't turning up for a punch up. They just wanted to support their club.
Yeah,
I've heard. I'm sorry. I've heard a couple of things from a few different people who were there. Who some of them are legitimately scared and I guess exposed to some pretty frightening moments or disconcerting moments. I've heard a lot of people also just say like you have. I mean, it was great fun and banter, and I guess it kind of depends on who you're with. If you're with a young child, it might have been a little scarier than if you weren't. That sort of thing. But
I mean, like I say, I mean the fact that some of them were in the family enclosure where the kids are, that really isn't right. But really, I mean, it's a little bit of man yourself up a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be completely different if, for example, if that was Tottenham and they're coming to take vast majority of our ground and have a punch up. It was nothing like that. They do have their hooligan element problem, Cologne, as do most clubs in Europe. But like I say, they just wanted to come, get drunk, and have a party, and
they did.
And they did. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, I'll be a hypocrite if I said that was wrong. I mean, I've watched Arsenal in the wrong end of grounds. Do you know what I mean? We've all sort of had points in our life where we haven't paid the full amount to get into the ground. It's just how it is. Do you know what I mean? So
I'm glad. I'm glad it appears no one got hurt.
I mean,
the game went off. An hour late. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the odd one was like I say. I mean, I was following the day's events, via friends that were up there and what they were sort of sending us messages in the WhatsApp group and all that. And the odd one is the police escorted about 8,000 to 10,000 of them from Highbury Fields to the ground. And then once they got to the ground, there was trouble because they didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
But they knew they were coming because they thinking, they escorted them there. It's like I say, I mean, if anything, really, the Arsenal as a club were how they got so many tickets, etc. And there's no way in the world that many actually managed to buy them off touts. It's not possible. Do you know what I mean?
They should be looking more into what happened there than what actually happened physically at the stadium, is how they got so many tickets. But Andy, actually, you can sympathize with Cologne fans because you sat in the away section at the Broncos game yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
How'd that go for you, cowboy?
Not well. I've sat in. I remember I was at Upton Park 4 Boxing Days ago, and Podolski scored the equalizer, and 20,000 people sat in their seats, and I just skyrocketed. And boy. It's awkward. I mean,
is that why your face looks like that now?
Yeah, I mean, I had my brother-in-law, who's a West Ham supporter, pulling me down, but it is what it is. And at the end of the day, like we said, it's I think highlights for English clubs that you have to prepare for that happening. And I think it highlights that we were ill prepared, but luckily they just wanted to have a good piss up and a good time, and no one got hurt. And on another podcast, maybe we could support or talk about the mixture of supporters when it comes to European football, because they wanted to have a good time. But let's go to the match, Mike, and the first goal.
Yeah, I mean, as our goalkeeping expert, Andy, just let me know briefly what you think, because I mean, Ospina's gotten murdered, and it was a really, really poor clearance for sure. But I mean, to me, I'm looking at Per Mertesacker just completely getting caught up too far upfield, having just an open runner in on goal to force Ospina out in the first place. Does he share any of the blame for what ended up happening, in your opinion?
Yes and no. I had the debate with Amanda, and so here's the thing. With Ospina coming off of his line, he should have just put as much gusto on it as possible, but at the end of the day, you have to be careful as a goalie that you're not going to take out that player, because then you're looking at a card. So him coming in as quickly as he could, having that player running onto the ball, I think that he played it as best as he could, honestly. He should have probably put it out of play or maybe higher up the pitch, but his concern is, I need to put my foot on this ball. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. But you can't place all the blame on Ospina. I think Per had some blame, but I'm always going to defend a goalie as I am one. But at the end of the day, he could have put probably a little bit more mustard on it for sure.
Yeah, and then of course the game completely changes at halftime. Siak Kolasinac comes in on our Fox Soccer feed. I got to see, because they don't have a halftime show. It's just raw footage on the app on the computer, and so they show 80 different highlights of the goal from Cordoba, of course, but then they also show Kolasinac during halftime getting some one-on-one coaching from Steve Bold, of all people, who's finally allowed to actually do something. The two of them are out there having a chat on the pitch during halftime, and Kolasinac comes in straight in after 45 minutes. And from that point, the game was over. Arsenal just rolled.
How rare is it that we see Arsene actually pull his head out of his ass and make a substitution at half? That's not injury related.
Yeah. That, I mean, you could be argued that substitution, I mean, could have been made before the game started, but yeah, I mean, Kolasinac changed, I think, in my opinion, changed the game completely. And because we have two games to recap, we'll probably spend a little bit more time on Chelsea than on Cologne. But great second half of football after a pretty dire first half. What do you think about the Europa League in general, Andy, right now?
I think it's a winnable competition. Until we see what teams dropping from Champions League, we are and I think the Cologne supporters even said, like, we're the top team. We have the target on our back, and I think that if we take the competition seriously, we go out and we play with players in their natural positions, kind of thinking Iwobi in center midfield didn't work. But if we actually go into this and we play it with a full-strength squad, we could win this cup easily. Gav, I don't know if you echo that sentiment, but I would prefer we take it seriously.
Yeah, no, I mean I done a little poll on Twitter the other week saying, how would you prefer to get into the Champions League next year? Would it be by finishing top four or by winning the Europa Cup? And the Europa Cup, rightly, I think it got about 89% of the vote. And I agree completely with that. I mean, it's a trophy. Look, I mean, we haven't won a lot of European trophies as a club. You know what I mean? We're pretty much, very, very down the pecking order when it comes to it. And it should be a trophy. Look, we should go out and win. But you just know that Wenger's going to use it as perhaps a backup if it looks like we can't get top four, much what Man United did last year. Mm-hmm. But like I say, I mean, I would love us to go out and win it. But like I say, I think really in the group stages, he's going to play much a similar team as what he did against Cologne. And again, on the later rounds from that, I think he's just going to take it game by game. But like I say, literally, he's just going to put a team out that he thinks he's just going to win. We're not going to get. I don't think the what we would consider to be the first choice starting 11 until sort of like the semi-finals or the final if we get there.
No, but we need to at least have a team that's sprinkled in about 6 or 7, outfield players that are used to playing week in and week out. More than a Caribbean Cup or whatever the hell it is, where we're probably seeing 10 changes made from the previous week. But we'll see, because there are always going to be games where we have 3 days later a tough Premier League opponent, and that has to be kept in mind as well. And this week our tough Premier League and let's move over to that game in a second.
Sorry, Mike, just lost you for a quick minute.
You there?
Yeah.
Gav, are you there?
Yeah.
All right, we'll we can edit that out.
Yeah.
All right, so I was just transitioning to the Chelsea game, so just get started on the Chelsea game and then.
Yeah, going into the Chelsea match, I think I hate to always go to this, Mike, but we go to our starting 11 every fucking time we play a match, thinking what is going on. And I think the biggest highlight for me was Iwobi starting over Ozil, who I'm quoting now is injured. Is this the first of Ozil's 3-month broken break that we saw last season, where he's going to get 2 weeks holiday throughout the season, or do we really think that he's injured, Mike?
Who the hell knows anymore? I mean, I guess we'll find out on his next Facebook update, but whether he's really hurt or not. Picture of him sitting there with a little pouty face. But I've stopped trying to figure out Mesut Ozil. I didn't realize he was hurt until the day of the game. Maybe he didn't realize he was hurt until the day of the game either. But we'll find out, I guess, on next Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, you don't think he's going to feature against Doncaster on Wednesday?
that would be typical Arsene, I suppose, to have Ozil and a bunch of kids out there. But,
seriously, a point away from home though against your defending champs. I would have taken the point before the match started. Gav, should we have gotten more from this after we see the 90 minutes play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Really, I mean, we edged the game slightly. We started off well. We didn't concede anything. Chelsea were at us, straight away, but sort of settled into the game. I kind of understood after about 15, 20 minutes why Wenger sort of put the team out and why, he's chucked Alexis on the bench, sort of thing. And it was a workmanlike performance, and we grew in the game. And like I say, I think Chelsea were more relieved to see the half-time break than us. And like I say, I think we did all right. I mean, like I say, another day we would have won that 1 or 2-0 on another day. I mean, we hit the post, which was Ramsey, I believe, and Lacazette, missed the rebound, and one of the great cross by Bellerin, and sadly it was Welbeck that it fell to. And but like I said,
by the way, it's just been announced he might miss a month with a groin injury now, Danny Welbeck. So that means 9 months.
Oh, God, that's a shame, because like I say, I mean, I'm not. Don't get me wrong, I'm not Welbeck's biggest fan. For me, if he carried on scoring goals how he started off this season, then he'd be an absolute brilliant player. But the problem is he just misses too many easier chances for me. He looks like Messi outside the box and Sonogo inside the box. He just hasn't got he just hasn't got that little bit of magic about him when it comes in the box, and you can't train that. And I'm sure he's a good trainer and everything. Do you know what I mean? But that little bit of magic that Ian Wright had, and Henry had, and Bergkamp had, he's just missing that little bit of magic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly.
No, you can't argue that, and it's frustrating that you see him play and net a brace, and you just see the impact he has on a match. And I think that's kind of echoes every Arsenal player like that's English, especially Theo. You see moments of brilliance, but then the majority of the time that you're seeing them, you're just wish you could wring their neck, and hopefully he rebounds quickly from the injury. But
No, I hope he gets fit soon.
because when he is fit, he adds a different dimension for us, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I was having this chat earlier with a couple of my mates. Look, Welbeck's the kind of player that you want to start away to Chelsea and away to Man United and Liverpool, like that. But he's not necessarily the player that you want to start when you're home to Brighton or home to West Bromwich Albion, someone like that. You want someone who's going to sort of take their chances, and perhaps we're not actually going to be needing to be as defensive, because he is really, when you look at it, he's a defensive winger.
Yeah.
And it's really, like I say, because he hasn't really got the goals to add to his game. So, but he is good tracking back. You can't fault his work rate. You know, it's just a bit of a conundrum, really. It's a bit of a conundrum when you play him instead of Alexis, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a completely different team from Liverpool in terms of effort and preparation, and so I kind of want to get your thoughts on, is that because of Arsene preparing better, or is it the players stepping up and getting each other ready for the match? Because typically we start off slow and we end okay. But for me, I thought it was an excellent performance. I'm not going to jump quite on the bandwagon yet. I want to see these performances against the like of Stokes, Bournemouths, where we lost critical points last season. But, you know, to go away to Chelsea, get a point, you know, we need to see it more. And so, Gav, first, I mean, do you think Arsene tactically had it spot on? Do you think it was more the players? I know it's a lot of hindsight, but at the end of the day, like, why are we all of a sudden turning around and being such a different team than Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the Liverpool game, he was trying his best to keep Oxlade-Chamberlain. And so he's shoehorning him in, which means Bellerin's gone over the other side. And I don't think really that it was sort of working, really. And I think that the players know when they're out on the pitch, and you get the team selection and you get told where you're playing, and you think, this ain't quite right here. I think the players know that sometimes, and there is quite a lot of times when you feel that certain players, and sometimes even as a team, that they don't actually play for Wenger anymore. It was very sort of obvious in our bad spell, sort of January, February last year, that the players weren't playing for him, and that's just what it looked like at Liverpool. It was an absolute disgrace of a performance, and it's unfortunately a performance that we see too regularly. We see a performance like that 2 or 3 times a year, which is the upsetting thing about it. And it was just completely different when we played Chelsea. But like I say, I think really that the players they've got a bit of confidence when it comes to playing against Chelsea, because we've over the last 4 or 5 games we've done okay against them. So I think they've kind of got the confidence that they've got one over them.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would not have expected after the Liverpool game and the way that we kind of limped our way out of the transfer window, that this team would have taken any kind of shape and solidify their mentality together and come out stronger. But I will be happy to be proven wrong on that. It just seemed like the stench was, and the things that stunk, with the exception of Chambo, were still around, and so to me, to see this team kind of galvanize together and play well, and God, we got 15 winnable points coming up in our next 5 Premier League matches: West Brom, Brighton, Watford, Everton, and Swansea. 15 out of 15 would do a heck of a lot to give a completely different picture on what this season looks like so far.
It does, and if you look at where we are in the table, and I know it's early, but we're only outside of the Manchester clubs, Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, we're within striking distance, and so it's imperative we get 15 points there, because they are definitely all going to drop points. Mike, we'll just go quickly. I loved before the match, Conte says that a goal for his team is to end the match with 11 players on the pitch. He must have forgotten he had David Luiz in his squad. only one man could take his fire, and that is the Tank. Quickly becoming one of my favorite players. What were your thoughts on the red card? And any other player do you think would have been able to withstand the battering that was David Luiz?
I actually believe that Danny Welbeck's groin injury came from Luiz's tackle on Kolasinac. I mean, that's how strong the Tank is, and how weak and how brittle, I should say, Welbeck is. But have I mentioned how much I love this guy? I mean, he's quickly becoming one of your favorite players. He's been one of my favorite players since the moment I laid eyes on him. He is my favorite player right now.
He's brilliant.
I can't love him enough. I sleep with his jersey. I ordered his jersey top a couple of weeks ago. I don't sleep in it. I sleep with it. I put a hole in it, and it's perfect for me.
I saw on Twitter someone put the balls of a left back to wear a T-shirt to piss off the Cologne fans, thinking he was going to score a goal, and then he does it with his first touch. I mean, his balls are mighty.
He clearly planned on taking off his shirt during that game in some way, shape, or form. But that was a beautiful thing. So yeah, I love him. I love him.
Gav, who was your man of the match for the game?
For the Chelsea game?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to really when you sort of look back at it. It's hard really to look much past Ramsey. To be fair,
yeah.
He gets a lot of criticism, but he covered the ground. He nearly scored. I'd like to sort of perhaps give it to him and to Xhaka for the fact that they both for once had a disciplined game, and there wasn't both of them bombing forwards, and they sort of covered each other, and it was just we just looked a lot stronger in the middle than we have done, and sometimes it's not really about how good a player it is. Sometimes it's about how intelligent they are and how intelligent the players are around them. And there was certainly more intelligent play by those two than we've seen all season, because we just weren't getting completely slaughtered down the middle of the pitch. So, like I say, really, I would like to sort of choose, but as a partnership, and I believe in partnerships on a football pitch, as a partnership, those two definitely stood out.
Yeah, I have to echo. I actually had Ramsey as my honorable mention. I thought Mustafi was really, really strong. Obviously he got unlucky with the goal, but Mike and Gav, he was also on my honorable mention list. The man of the match for me was the supporter who clearly had no clue the goal was offside and decided to celebrate anyway. And he just thought, "Fuck this! I'm gonna invade," and he invaded greatly. And so, for that matter, he is my man of the match.
That's actually the title of the book they're writing about how you got your son, about how you made your son.
Yeah, invaded.
Mrs. Ant, I don't know if we use her name for her privacy and benefit, but Mrs. Andy, I'm going to invade you and invade you greatly, and you will have a son 9 years later. That's not me saying that. That's Andy saying that.
You know what's funny, Mike, is I texted so behind the curtains we have a WhatsApp group, and Mike zoomed in a picture of my 4-month-old son and said he's packing some heat. But you know what's funny, Mike, is I showed that to my wife, and she said, "I thought the same thing with that photo." And I was just thinking,
he's wearing a onesie, and it's like all like it might be a little bit too big, the onesie, so it's like all the material is packed together in one area, and I just I guess it's becoming a little bit weird that I keep noticing these sort of things. But
it's weirder that my wife noticed the same thing.
See, we're on the same page here about your son's dick. So, yeah, that's a little weird. But yeah, that dude was fantastic. The guy that invaded, not the guy with the big penis.
He's going to regret it though, because that's him banned for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean,
but he's the Gooners in USA man of the match. So
yeah, we're gonna have to find that guy and have him on as a guest pretty soon. that'll make all the pain of being banned go away in 90 minutes. So we got user questions. We call them user questions, Gav, because and one of our good friends and other also a podcaster asked me after last week's pod. She Just, why you not call them user questions instead of listener questions, Michael? and I'm like, first of all,
Ireland?
no, she was. She probably sounded a little different than that, but that's the best I can do. She said, first, thanks for listening to our podcast so carefully, because we talk about this virtually every single podcast. But we aspire to be more than something you listen to. I mean, you can just listen to an ordinary podcast, but you have to use us like an ointment to make you feel better, get rid of a rash, whatever it is. We're proud of the wide range of things that we can do for people outside just talking about Arsenal. So we have users, not listeners. And it just so happens that all of our users do have those rashes that they need to get rid of. So we'll have to look into why that is. First question, Alfredo from New Orleans. I love Alfredo. We're looking forward to seeing him again in January at Gooner. Gav, I don't suppose you've ever heard of Gooner.
I have, yeah. It looks absolutely wicked, mate.
How'd you come to know about it?
Just from Twitter, and I think it's absolutely bloody brilliant.
It's the fifth one this January. I was supposed to go to the third one, and then we had just a massive blizzard that made me wuss out of it. But went last year. Took my wife last year. She met all my crazy Arsenal fans and fit right in. My Arsenal friends, I mean, fit right in, and it's just 3 or 4 days of just nothing but Arsenal and drinking, and those two things happen to go together very, very well. There's nothing saying that people from the UK can't come over. In fact, some do, some have, but the more the merrier. And reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with the right people. But if you've got, it's during the FA Cup fourth round weekend, so I mean, hopefully we'll be playing. But you can miss the odd match to come party with 400 crazy Americans and have a great time. But he asks a question, which is, on the scale from ecstatic to orgasmic, how happy are you with the purchase of Seed Kolasinac? I'm going to call him Seed because it reminds me of something, but we didn't purchase him. We stole it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, as much as well be hammering the club for letting Alexis and Ozil go for free. At the end of this year, we got him for an absolute steal. I mean, we got him for absolutely nothing.
I picture Arsenal sprinting over the German border with this guy in their knapsack, like being chased by police and by the store owner. And I mean, we stole it.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is we were probably onto him by about the end of January. The end of January of this year, we was probably onto him by then. Because, like I say, he more or less signed as soon as the season was over. So, he's been tapped up, well. He's been scouted well. He was in the, he was the voted best German left back of the season last year. And to do that in that league, you've got to be pretty handy. So, like I say, he's still. I still think we've not seen anywhere close to the best of him. I really, really do. And
that's a scary thought if you're an opponent.
Yeah, like I say, I'd love to see him play. Like I say, I mean, because we are going to flip between 3 at the back and 4 at the back all season. It's going to keep changing, and so, like I say, we're going to see him at left wing back. We're going to see him at left back with a winger in front of him, and I just think he's only going to get better. And we need players like that. I was thinking about that when we had a corner against Chelsea, and I'm sitting there thinking we look a bit stronger and a little bit meatier than we have done before. Do you know what I mean? We look a little bit taller. We look a little bit harder. We didn't have as many limp wristers in on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? We just looked a little bit.
I thought we had moved on from talking about Andy's son, his 4-month-old son.
That's terrible.
Do you know what I mean? And like I said, I just think he's. I don't think we've seen half of. I don't think we've seen half of how good this fella's going to be. I really don't.
Ray Wilkins, I was just reading just a minute ago, Ray Wilkins, former Chelsea player, apparently has stated that he thinks David Luiz wet himself going into that tackle, which I haven't read the whole story yet, but that's I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, so from ecstatic to orgasmic, where do you fall on the range there?
I'm probably in the middle at the moment.
I was going to say the same. I'm orgastic.
Orgastic.
So saw an article earlier today where it said David Luiz is in hospital for multiple fractures of his foot from hitting his shin.
Oh, jeez. Multiple fractures of his feelings. But, I mean, ecstatic to orgasmic. I mean, everybody, most people, everybody knows I go straight to orgasm way too quickly anyway. So I'm multi-orgasmic about this guy, and yeah, his kit. I'll wear it at home for games, not when I go to the pub, because it's just a little too crispy at this point. So, speaking of crispy, my good friend Tom Rosenhammer from Richmond has a question for Gav. It's a good one. I'm always interested in the local opinion about this. So, what is your favorite match day pub?
My favourite match day pub is the George, which is on Eden Grove in North Severn. It's just off Holloway Road. It's run by a fella called Pete, and his boy works match days, and so do quite a few young ladies. I
think it'll be run by a guy named George.
Yeah, no, it's Pete. He's a lovely fella. I mean, I chat to him every few weeks. I phone him up and we have a chat about various things and stuff. And he's a big supporter of his little boxing club. A club like sort of. I try and put a few pennies towards out of various little things I do throughout the year. But yeah, no, it's just a very, very nice pub. It's not. I wouldn't say it'd be your typical first pub you'd want to go to if you was an overseas fan.
Right.
It's kind of. There's a lot of.
It's an acquired taste.
No, I wouldn't say that. It's just a lot of gentlemen and ladies of a certain age that have been going over Arsenal for many, many years, and it's very much a sort of locals kind of pub, if you know what I mean. But the atmosphere in there is always good. It's always a bit spicy. It's always full of top Arsenal supporters. I mean, you walk in there and you bump into fellas that haven't missed a game in 5, 10, 15 years. Yeah. You bump into blokes that go to, the under-23 games, and blokes that go every single European away game. It's a very much hardcore support in there, really, and he's got a good jukebox. The beer's always very clean. I know he goes in there the night before and he clears all the pipes out. So even if you're the first one in there, which I've been a few times, you're getting a nice pint. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
it's your happy place.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I know. I've probably been in the majority of pubs within a mile radius of the ground over the last 25, 30 years. So, but like I say, that's my favourite pub, and has been for a good few years.
Well, I will be there in December and again in March, and I will certainly check it out. It may have been one of our stops when we went there for an Arsenal America road trip a few years ago. I know we went to a few. I'm saying the even better thing about it is you can go to Pinebury Corner, get your pie, and then by the time you've walked around the corner and you've eaten your pie and you're in the pub. That's right.
Like I say, a lot of my mates do that as well. They'll go. I mean, Pinebury Corners again for getting a very, very nice pie, or indeed staying around and listening to the music. And Pinebury Corners a very good atmosphere as well.
We love Paul Pinebury Corner. We've chatted with him before, and Andy was just there a few weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. And
it's unfortunate. You almost kind of have to choose Holloway side or Highbury side because of the distance between the two on a game day. But when I'm on Highbury side, I love the Gooners pub. I just want to give them a quick plug because they are always welcoming of my son. Not all the pubs, Tollington on game day, great experience, but you can't bring your kids in for understandable reasons. So I'm just can't wait. I think I'm going to stay in Highbury area when I go back in December. So I will certainly stop by the George and hopefully run into you there. A question for Andy from Roger Kendrick. He's at it again with a pertinent question after yesterday, which is Ramsey or Ozil in the number 10 position? If Ramsey, what do you do with Mesut? And follow-up question, does Walcott have the easiest gig in world football? and Andy, since we never hear your thoughts on young Theo, share them, please.
Yeah, Theo is a fucking thief for the amount of money he's taking off of our club. And so, yes, he has the easiest gig in football. Do I think Ramsey or Ozil number 10? It's a tough one because the Ozil we saw against Bournemouth in the number 10 role is unstoppable. But again, we need to see it week in and week out. I think that Ramsey's best position is probably going to be that number 10, especially when you see him play there for Wales. So if Ozil is going to leave this summer, I feel like we have that great replacement. And you can even throw Jack in there if he's fully healthy, and he'll do a number as well. You've got Iwobi. But, I think while we have Ozil at the club and hope he extends, you want him in that number 10 position. Because at the moment, I feel like we don't have a better central midfielder to replace Ramsey if we did move him up. So that's my answer. Gav?
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and we have kind of a related question. I'll ask you to expand on, Gav, because it has to do with Ramsey in a sense. From Steve-O, just to combine these two together. Should we minimize Ozil and Alexis playing time, which of course then would presumably give more time to Alexis at his preferred, or to Ramsey at his preferred position, as they are off ski? I guess that's Russian for leaving. And he also, by the way, threw in a plug about how much he enjoys your spots on the Bergkamp Wonderland pod, which of course we do as well, and we love those guys. So, what do you think about, in a sense, giving Ramsey more playing time at the 10? But specifically as it relates to reducing Ozil and Alexis playing time as a result of them being 1 foot out the door.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tricky one. And like I say, I mean, Wenger's really going to have to shuffle the pack a lot this year with the amount of games that we're going to play, especially if we hopefully continue on in the Europa Cup. There is going to be more games than last year. So, we're going to need a bigger squad, and he's going to need to rotate. A lot of players are not going to be able to handle the Thursday and the Sunday, throughout the whole season. But yeah, I mean, I think as it stands, really, it's tricky. I mean, I'd like to see Ramsey give him more of a free role and more of a number 10 role just to see how he gets on. And I think against certain teams, he should try that. Alexis is a completely different animal. I mean, Alexis, even though he's possibly not the greatest team player, he's one of the only players in our squad who can win a game on his own. So when he's head right and when he's fully fit, he's got to play him. It seems almost stupid not to play him whilst we've got him. I mean, we haven't forsaken the 60 million or whatever it was that Man City were going to give us for him, but just to not play him for a year.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, that's absolutely stupid. I mean, we've got him, we're paying his wages, fucking play him.
I'd say run him into the ground. I mean, so he doesn't have that much left when he gets to City next year. But if that's where he goes, but the question then becomes: is he brilliant, Alexis, or is he throwing strops constantly all over the place? And
I mean, I think kind of the Chelsea game kind of gave us an insight to what it would be like as it stands at the moment with our Alexis and with our Ozil, and sometimes 11 players playing as a team are going to play a lot better than 10 players and one who's sort of playing for himself, really.
No question.
So it's a very good question, but like I say, I mean, that's where and why Wenger gets paid the big money, mate. He gets paid the big money because at that level and the level that we're playing at, it's not just down to having the best players. It's down to putting the best team on the pitch and motivating and getting them playing as a team and getting playing in the right formation. So, I mean, that's where Wenger really, that's where he should be earning his money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as we know, there's no bigger supporter of Arsene Wenger than you, Gav.
Oh, yeah.
As far as anybody on this podcast knows. No.
I think I'm possibly, yeah. I mean, so I think it's been about 6 years since I first wrote a blog stating why he shouldn't be the manager anymore.
And you haven't exactly crossed back over the fence on that, have you?
No, there hasn't been any flip flopping on my side at all. Not at all.
No. Well, at least you're consistent. That's more than I could say for myself. But I'm over that fence now. All right. So thank you to our amazing users. We got a couple additional questions that we don't have time for. We'll try to bring them in next week. But if you haven't submitted a question, but you listen to our podcast or use our podcast, please, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. We want to get new people in the rotation. Doesn't matter what your question is about. We answer questions that, are not even about Arsenal, usually pretty embarrassingly, but trust us and give us a shout.
Can I ask you boys a question?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Who's your favourite Arsenal player that you've seen?
Of all time, in person,
all time, or since you've been following, and watching Arsenal or old videos of old YouTubes or whatever. Who is your favourite Arsenal player?
Andy, you want to go?
Yeah, he's the reason I became an Arsenal supporter. I know we've talked about it before, but I got to see Ian Wright in the Littlewoods Cup. It was my first ever match, and so for me, he's always been my favourite Arsenal player. Obviously, as a keeper, I grew up loving Seaman.
Hey.
I didn't even have to say anything on that.
But then I was lucky enough to see the likes of Bergkamp and Henry play live in the flesh. But for me, it's always going to be Ian Wright.
Yeah, and I had a weird gap in my Arsenal fandom. It started in '88. When I lived over there, and then for about 15 years or so, from the early 90s to the mid 2000s, I wasn't really able to follow Arsenal. So, I mean, Bergkamp, Thierry Henry's glory days, all of that, I wasn't watching. So I have to say that to me, the guy that kind of had the moment that sealed my fate as an Arsenal fan for life was Michael Thomas. The goal he scored just for that one moment. He was a good player, but that moment, he'll always be the guy I look back and say, if it wasn't for what he did that day, who knows whether I would have continued on and it been so important to me. But as far as day in, day out, the player that I've gotten to see in person that I enjoyed and valued the most, I'd have to go with David Rocastle. He's a special player, special guy, and I just, I can't really pin that kind of feeling on any of the current day players or even, going back 8 to 10 years. Certainly not Theo anyway. So yeah, excellent question. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, like I say, I couldn't, you probably picked three of my, if I had to pick a top 10 of Arsenal players ever, all three of them would definitely be in the top 10. So, cracking answers, lads.
It's back when the men were men.
Yeah. I would like to say, going to Rocky, if you think that the way he played and the way he performed for us on the pitches back then, and on the diets and on the training and on the the physical aspect side of things and the physical training, and if he come into us now as an 18 or 19-year-old, he would be worth, he'd be £100 million player.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, no question about it.
He is truly a rock, like his name designates. So We'll move on to picks of the week now. This is a segment I'm enjoying very much this season. After match day 5, I got 3 points from the matches, including hitting the 4-0 Man U game on the head. So, Andy, it's 11 for me. It's 8 for our guest, which was Harry Pratt last week, and 6 for you. So it's 11. It's 11-6, and I'm going to give you an option here. Would you like just to award me the season now, crown my ass, and just cut your losses, because this is going to get embarrassing for you?
I'm still drinking champagne from winning the Pick'ems title last season, Mike. So I'll catch up. Don't worry about it.
All right, so now we're gonna pick 3 games. I specifically, because of my criticism last week, I did not include a Manchester United game this week. We're gonna pick 3 Premier League games and ending with Arsenal, and we're gonna pick a winner and a score, or of course a tie, a draw if you'd like. First game is Huddersfield Town at Burnley. And the interesting thing about this game is that the winner of this game, assuming there is a winner, will be ahead of Arsenal in the table no matter what after match day 6. And to the extent that matters. But Burnley's beaten Chelsea and taken points off of Liverpool and Tottenham so far this season, which is kind of nuts considering they couldn't do anything last year. Huddersfield Town have not done those things, so I'm going to pick Burnley to win at home 2-0. Andy, what do you have?
Yeah, I think just like you said, off of form, Burnley have just been playing well. They've got such a good manager as well. I'm going to go 1-0 Burnley.
Okay. And Gav, what are you thinking?
I'm going for a Desmond. I'm going for 2-2. Huddersfield had a good start to the season, didn't they? Win their first.
Yeah, they've had a pretty flat. I mean, it's not a flat track when you're looking up at everybody from just being promoted, but I mean they have not really played anyone of significance yet, and I suppose they still aren't this weekend. But Burnley's done it a little bit more impressively. But Huddersfield Town's, I think, 7th in the table.
Yeah, and like I say, and again, it's not really a ground that they're going to be intimidating to go to or anything like that, and they're not a million miles apart from each other. Yeah, I'm going for a Desmond, 2-2.
Desmond 2-2, we love that. All right, Liverpool at Leicester City. It's the L Derby, which is my favorite kind of derby of all of them. It's just not sure what to make of Liverpool so far this season, but as long as the Ox is on their roster, I'm banking on them underperforming. He's clearly, we found out what the poison was in our team, and we've given it to other teams. So my prediction is Leicester Loves Life ends level with the Liverpool Laughingstock Losers, 1-1. Leonardo Ulloa scores for Leicester. And I don't care if he's hurt and missing the game. Guess who I have scoring for Liverpool? It'll be Lallana.
Oh, God, I was trying to think of you're such a loser. Get it?
1-1. Yes, I got it. 1-1.
I'm
What do you
going
think,
to go
Andy?
2-1 Liverpool.
You have them winning on the road against Leicester. All right. And does Ox play the last 10 minutes of the game at right wing back?
I don't think he plays at all.
He's playing in the League
The
Cup.
U23s? Oh, probably. Oh, definitely. And he's good. And he's good in that setting when the pressure's off. He'll probably score a brace in that one. All right, Gav, what do you think about the game?
I want to say 2-2 again. I can't really split them. Leicester can be quite tasty at home. Liverpool are quite unpredictable. I'll go 3-2 Liverpool.
Oh, okay.
It's close though. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 3-2 either way.
For some reason, I mean, the way those two teams play, I'm not expecting that. I don't know why I went 1-1 because I mean, there's not going to be a lot of defense played in that game. I don't think. Should be pretty back and forth and entertaining. So, and then last but not least, West Brom at Arsenal. Andy, I'm going to give you a freebie here because I'm going to stick with my superstition of going for the reverse jinx because it seems to be working lately. So I am going to, for that reason and that reason only, go 2-1 to West Brom. And of course, they're going to score both goals from their own half so that we can keep our streak going of not allowing any goals from within 45 meters. 2-1 West Brom. Andy.
I'm going to go 3-0 Arsenal.
Okay. I'll root for you in that one because I'll have already picked up 2 more points for you on the first one. And, Gav, what do you think? Home game against West Brom, who beat us last season.
Yeah, like I say, to bring up gentlemen that I speak to, I've got a few mates who every single game back us to win 3-1. Which is anything normally from 12 to 18, 20 to 1. But I think 3-1. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet.
Set piece.
Yeah, we'll give up a set piece or a corner kick. Corner goal, for
exactly.
sure.
But like I say, I think I'm not really worried about West Brom. Like I say, the performance against Chelsea should be enough. And we're at home, which means Lacazette's going to score. So, 3-1.
All right. Well, I'd love nothing more than to beat a Tony Poulos team, and hopefully we'll do that this weekend. He is still their coach, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, speaking of which, we got Doncaster and West Brom this week. I don't think Doncaster deserves or needs any kind of a preview. In fact, most of us probably won't even be able to watch the game.
ESPN 3.
I don't think anybody.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, it's on ESPN 3 over here in the States.
Oh, all right. Well, then, in fact, I will be watching that game on Wednesday. And
I'll put that channel.
beautiful. And then West Brom on Sunday, like we talked about. So, guys, final thoughts. We didn't add any new countries this week. We've gotten up to 97 countries listening to us. We haven't added any this week, but I did notice that we got a repeat listener or user from China. So we either have somebody who listened to a second podcast, or we've doubled our listeners in China every week from week to week. So if we keep doing that and double and double and double it, by April 23rd, after the FA Cup semifinal, we'll have just completely saturated the entire Chinese population with this podcast. So we may have to travel to China to celebrate that, and do it from the Great Wall. But Gav, tell us again where we should take our internet machines to find you and hear from you and give you our tuppence and all of that.
Yeah, no, like I say, I mean, I've covered most platforms. It's SheWore.com's the blog, at SheWore on Twitter. On Facebook, we've got a very lively Facebook group. I think it's about just coming up to 45,000 on there now, which is facebook.com/SheWore. And of course, if you're after something a little bit different than what your mates are wearing and that you get from the club shop, it's SheWoreShop.com. And obviously, as you're aware, the pound to the dollar's vastly in your favour at the moment.
Oh yeah.
So like I say, you get a bargain for something that you wouldn't have perhaps got a couple of years ago. So but yeah, no, like I say, check me out.
And you're gonna start selling baby onesies with extra padding in the groin area.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I did look into. I mean, I've possibly looked into making just about everything over the last few years, and the baby clothing side of things is just too expensive to do, because, like I say, I mean, you go to your local Asda or Walmart or whatever, and it's so cheap to get stuff in there. Look, it's, like I say, and anybody who has young children like I have, that they wear things 3 times and they bloody ruin it, and you chuck them away, and perhaps you don't really want to do that with Arsenal stuff. Do you know what I mean?
No, you got to keep it in I keep all my old stuff that I don't fit in anymore in a garbage bag that like I'm hoping I'm going to someday be able to fit in it again, but that just doesn't seem to be happening. So appreciate having you on. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on relatively short notice as well.
Cheers, Gav.
Hope to have you on again.
It's been great. Like I say, I mean, I've had a listen to your pod before, and like I say, a few other. I do listen to quite a few of the podcasts, sort of thing, and it's good to listen to, because, like I say, American bloggers and American podcasts can sometimes get a bad reputation for talking complete bollocks, but you guys don't.
Oh, that might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about it.
Yeah, no, I'm just, anybody who follows me on Twitter knows I kind of like saying things how I bloody see them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like I say, I listened to one of your pods. I thought, no, they're talking a bit of sense. They're having a giggle. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I said, when you've got a spot, give me a shout, and I'll come on and we'll have a chat. And it's been a good hour having a chat, lads.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Gav. Have a good week, gentlemen, and I will talk to you next week after West Brom, Andy.
Yeah.
Come on, you Gooners.